Welcome to the Get Fit Guys, quick and dirty tips to slim down and shape up. My name is Ben Greenfield. I'm the Get Fit Guy, and in this next two-part series, you're going to learn about when biohacking fitness goes perhaps a bit too far. Now, lately, I've been called out quite a bit about my fringe, nerdy, technology-obsessed biohacking shortcuts to achieve body and brain performance. See, a common problem in our era, even among people who are paleo or primal or ancestral or vegan or natural or whatever, is a growing obsession with self-quantification, or biohacking, biomarker exploring, Bluetooth sporting, brain zapping, and beyond. But how much is too much? When have we crossed the line from our modern science and smart hacking into the realm of damaging our bodies, our happiness, our lives, and even our genes? Where do we draw the line between biohacking and ancestral living? Now, don't get me wrong, I'm definitely a biohacker. In the past 24 hours alone, I've performed TDCS pre-workout to spark up my motor cortex. I've done electroencephalography, intranasal light therapy, electrical muscle stimulation, peptide injections, electric compression boots, 8 different nootropic pills, and much more. And yes, that was in the past 24 hours. But in the same 24 hours, I've also done a 15-minute sit spot in nature, gratitude journaling, a boatload of natural spring water, a forest walk, yoga, a glass of raw goat milk, and deep breathing, which I would consider to be a bit more on the ancestral side. So in this two-part episode, you'll get plenty of examples of how and when biohacking might cross the line, and when smarter, more natural, more ancestral alternatives to the current craze of cryotherapy, electrical muscle stimulation, digital meditation, nootropics, and strapping your own equivalent of a goat limb prosthetic to your body might make sense. And I am referencing, by the way, the Goat Man, who you can Google. His name is Thomas Thwaites. Check it out for a perfect example of a biohack, perhaps gone too far. Now, let's start here. Hypoxia. Let's start with hypoxic training. Hypoxia and hyperoxygenation involve the practice of using hypoxic air generators or hyperbaric chambers or fancy masks and lung training devices to play with the level of oxygen in the body. Both excess oxygen and oxygen deprivation have actually been shown to cause interesting effects on things like nitric oxide production and free radical management. But instead of face masks and air chambers, you can also try breath hold walks, box breathing, pranayama breathing, kundalini yoga, simple apps that train you how to use the same static apnea tables as freedivers do, and even swimming and underwater workouts similar to those big wave surfer Laird Hamilton has recently popularized. Believe it or not, you can get a potent oxygen training effect without necessarily dragging out the expensive or modern electronic biohacks. And by the way, if you want to pursue or look into those things like Kundalini or pranayama or box breathing, if you go to the show notes over at quickanddirtytips.com, just look for this episode and we'll have some resources for you, or you can see the big list that you can go delve into. Next is electrical muscle stimulation, also known as EMS, in which a signal is transmitted from a controller device that acts like an external brain to shock your muscles into a contraction. And it's a great way to train. It stimulates a lot of muscle fibers and can increase muscular endurance and blood and lymph flow with pretty little amounts of joint impact. Many athletes use this method as a way to churn out massive amounts of lactic acid in muscle tissue. Now, you can achieve similar results, though, with isometrics, or static muscle holds, which is a type of strength training in which you just don't change the joint angle and muscle length during a contraction. So before you strap electrodes on your body to shock your muscles, you might want to try low-impact, joint-friendly isometric activities like the good old wall sit, push-up holds, lunge holds, and dead hangs from a bar for time. Next are engineered foods. Now, if you attend any number of natural health events, you'll still come across an enormous variety of prepackaged engineered meals that promise to contain optimal amounts of the nutrients necessary to support your body for hours on end. And I won't deny that our ancestors used tinctures, essential oils, and concentrated extracts of everything from plants to animal livers for getting targeted delivery of medicinal or body and brain-enhancing compounds. But at the same time, meal replacements, protein shakes, energy bars, and beyond still require or include the addition of preservatives, sweeteners, chemicals, and other substances you wouldn't be ingesting if you went for a more natural method of targeted nutrient delivery. What do I mean by this? Well, consider the following. You could harvest or purchase high-quality organic fruits and vegetables. You could dry them in the sun or in a food dehydrator. You could pulverize them in a blender, and you can get nutrient-dense vegetable powders that you can then keep in jars in your pantry. No fancy meal subscription service or fancy packaged powder required. Admittedly, this is just a single example, but the takeaway message is this. Before turning to engineered fuels, ask yourself if you can naturally replicate something similar at home with less packaging and less preservatives. Is an egg a perfect protein bar? Is sea salt an electrolyte? Is coconut oil a ketosis food? You bet. Now, next are compression garments, and I own a pair of fancy space-age compression boots that pump blood from my ankles down to my heart using a fancy form of gradated compression developed by NASA. Go over to bengreenfieldfitness.com and listen to my interview with the folks from Normatec to learn a little bit more about that. Now, compression devices like this are one of my favorite go-tos for post-workout recovery and rehab and for targeting good removal of metabolic byproducts that can cause muscle pain and body aches. Compression boots, compression socks, and compression shirts are designed for people who spend most of their time by the standing desk, or runners and cyclists, and it helps them, in that case, to relieve muscular fatigue and improve blood circulation in the body. But at the same time, without purchasing any fancy equipment or space-age compression boots or even an inversion table, you could learn techniques like headstands, handstands, and inverted yoga poses to create similar effects as compression devices in an easily affordable and attainable form that allows you to, for example, decompress your spine or pump waste products from your legs. The added perk is that you can do this by going into a handstand against a tree trunk in the sunshine, rather than plugging a pair of $2,000 gradated compression boots into a wall outlet in your living room, as much fun as that latter option might be. Now, next comes cryotherapy. And one new recovery craze comes in the form of cold thermogenesis and cryotherapy, often involving fancy cold chambers that you can step into. Now, like I mentioned, there is this craze called cryotherapy, and it's been proven by popular advocates like Wim Hof to enhance the strength of the immune system, primarily by increasing levels of immune system cells that help fight disease and infection. Now, by combining heat therapy and cold thermogenesis, you can also stimulate things like norepinephrine and nitric oxide release, open up blood vessels, increase stress resilience, cause white fat conversion to metabolically active brown fat, and much more. Now, I talk about this in my Get Fit Guy cold thermogenesis episode, which I'll link to over at quickanddirtytips.com. But rather than paying big bucks to step into a fancy cryotherapy chamber or to use some kind of fancy cold-packed spandex shirt pants, you can easily achieve the same or superior results with an icy cold shower, or by diving into a cold outdoor pool or river, or by just turning off the heater in your car or your home every now and again. Finally, for this week's episode, there's heat therapy. And it's a similar fad to cryotherapy, and it's often found in the form of fancy infrared and near-infrared saunas, which, according to the latest research, are actually fantastic for everything from increasing growth hormone to balancing blood pressure to improving cardiovascular health, increasing longevity, and beyond. But if you want to avoid sitting in a potentially electromagnetically fused chamber, you don't want to shine giant laser lights on your skin, or you want a more natural route, there are more potent heat therapy tactics that can be learned by sporting communities like wrestling and the MMA. Look at heat sauna suits, cotton jogging pants and tops, walks and runs and bike rides in the afternoon heat, and occasionally eschewing air conditioning on a hot summer day. These can all give similar stress resilience and heat shock protein producing effects, but there's no fancy biohacking saunas required. And again, I'm not an enemy of biohacking. I just want to open you up to some more ancestral, natural, cheap and easy ideas. Now, next week, we're going to delve into 6 more ancestral alternatives to modern biohacks, including nootropics and smart drugs, anti-aging injections, and much more. But in the meantime, if you have questions, comments, or feedback about how to biohack your fitness or not to biohack your fitness, then join the conversation over at facebook.com/getfitguy. And until next time, I'm Ben Greenfield, the Get Fit Guy, asking you, what are you waiting for? Go get fit.